Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Today we are here to discuss how to grow your Microsoft Windows business with Veeam Hyper-V support. I'll be your host, Joe Hamlin, and I'm joined today with Chris Henley from Veeam, Product Strategy Specialist, and he'll be talking with us how to grow your Microsoft Windows business with Veeam Hyper-V support. Now, before we start today, I'd like to remind everybody to please answer the polling questions that we'll be sending out during the course of the conversation. These polling questions are yes or no answers, very simple. When you see them come out, please click the answer, and that'll give us great feedback on today's presentation. Also, please, I encourage everybody at the end of our conversation here to ask questions. You can do this by entering questions in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll get to those questions at the end of our conversation in a timely manner, and we're really looking forward to those as well. Now, also, at the end of our presentation here, we'll be raffling off a $100 Amex gift card to one lucky winner. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm having a fabulous day. Joining y'all from the opposite coast out here in sunny San Francisco. Excited to talk about Veeam and Microsoft.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we got lucky today. We have 50-degree weather in Jersey, so I'm not, I'm not going to complain about that. All right. So now, Chris, the tagline for this webinar is Veeam plus Microsoft equals better together. Can you give us a little insight as to why they work so well together and where this slogan came from?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the reason I'm in San Francisco, California today is because Microsoft is holding one of their roadmap events where they actually talk about not just present-day technologies, but also future technologies, what they see coming in the next, say, 3 months, 6 months, 9, 12, 18-month time frame. And one of the things that they're going to focus on from a roadmap perspective, and that they've focused on now for the better part of, gosh, I guess 4 years, is this fact that we're going to see the business world move from the old physical style environment to a new virtual style environment. You've all heard of virtualization. You're familiar with the concept of virtualization. Virtualization from how to actually get there perspective is done from VMware, and it's done from Microsoft using Hyper-V. And VMware owns a significant portion of that marketplace. Microsoft's now moving in, and that balance of market share is starting to get a little bit more even. And from a Veeam perspective, we think it's going to continue and that there's going to be a balancing in that market where we see both VMware and Hyper-V running side by side in their businesses. So why Veeam and Microsoft from a better together perspective? Well, as companies adopt, specifically Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2, along with virtualization, an addition of Veeam Software, which includes two pieces. We'll probably talk about both of them today. A piece of software called Veeam Backup and Replication, which provides the data protection for virtual machines, and then a management pack called Veeam Management Pack that goes with System Center Operations Manager, provides the monitoring and management piece for the virtual infrastructure. When we say better together, if the future is virtualization, and it is, then the operating system piece will be Microsoft, and the backup replication monitoring management piece will be Veeam. So that's where it comes from, and that's why we talk about Veeam and Microsoft better together. It's a huge future opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, for end users looking at virtualization, what benefits are there by utilizing Hyper-V as opposed to, say, other virtualization options?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of options out there in the marketplace today, and they kind of take on several different characters, if you will. VMware's fantastic. We've already mentioned them today. VMware's a very mature solution. They're the oldest player in the virtualization space. They've been around the longest, and as such, probably have the strongest market share. Unfortunately, they're also the most expensive. Hyper-V, one of the younger players in the virtualization space, also mature. It's been around for, going on 5 years now. Capabilities-wise, very comparable to VMware. In fact, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those choices. I think both of them are fantastic. From a cost perspective, because Hyper-V is actually included as part of the Windows Server license, it costs much less to run Hyper-V than it does to run other options. Now, for those of you that are thinking, hey, isn't there a free option out there? There are a couple of different options that are going to fall into the open source community. You know that Citrix Zen is now part of the open source world. I believe there's still a cost associated with it, but it's actually maintained and managed by the open source movement. You can use those from a capabilities perspective. They aren't as robust. They don't have the same kind of future that we look at something like Hyper-V or VMware is having. And as a consequence, we don't see too much of the market moving into those, what we'll call, I guess, other hypervisor solutions. Right now, the market seems to favor both VMware and Hyper-V. And why would a customer choose Hyper-V? Well, primarily it's because of cost. When you start looking at running a virtual environment, one of the first things that a virtualization environment will do is purchase an operating system to run in their virtual machine. So regardless of what hypervisor, whether it's Hyper-V or VMware, whichever one you choose, the first thing that you do is purchase the operating system that's going to run in your virtual machine. And statistics tell us that better than 95% of the time, the purchase choice is Microsoft Windows Server to run as that server operating system. So Microsoft's pretty smart, right? They've actually built the licensing for Hyper-V into the sale of the server product. So when you make a purchase of Windows Server, if you're buying 2012 or 2012 R2, which are the current editions, you make a purchase of Windows Server, they come with the virtualization rights to run multiple Windows servers. So those individuals that choose, for example, to go with a VMware infrastructure environment, they pay for the VMware infrastructure, then they pay again for the Windows infrastructure, where a customer who makes the choice to run Hyper-V pays for Windows Server and the virtualization. The Hyper-V component is included with Server. So Microsoft's positioning of Hyper-V, I think, has a lot to do with a customer's potential adoption of that hypervisor.
Amazing, yeah. That definitely makes sense for sure. Now, moving on, how can resellers identify, possible opportunities for Veeam backup and replication for Hyper-V and Microsoft?
That's a super question. I wish I had an opportunity to answer that every day. So when you talk about opportunities for Veeam backup and replication, if you have a customer who is using virtualization and they're using Microsoft, they want backup and replication. And we'll talk more about some of the innovations in this product, but it is off the charts in its capabilities to protect data in a virtual environment with Hyper-V. So if I'm a reseller and I'm having a conversation with a customer and they say, hey, we're going to run Windows Server and we're thinking about implementing Hyper-V, I know this is an instant add-on sale for backup and replication. Now, how is that going to happen? We probably ought to have a conversation about that, and I think actually we will at some point maybe go into some details here about what exactly can I say, what are the kind of buzzwords, the things that really kind of help a customer to make that purchase decision around backup and replication. The basics of it are every customer who's making that move to virtualization has a distinct need to protect the data that's going into that environment. Veeam's backup and replication tool set is a great logical solution.
Absolutely, and that makes perfect sense from a reseller perspective. Now, moving on here, once resellers identify the Hyper-V opportunities, what can they say to position this to their end user? Is there, so to speak, an elevator pitch that can utilize that they can utilize to kind of pique their end users' interest?
Yeah, there is. Now, this is the best thing about this. This is the easiest sell that you'll make. So Microsoft has done this, VMware has done this, we've seen Forrester, Gartner, IDC, all of them ask their customers on a regular basis where their concerns are around the virtualization space and around the cloud space. And when I see those kinds of surveys coming out from them, I always pay close attention because, frankly speaking, the virtualization and the cloud space really are the same space. I know oftentimes we think of cloud as public, but there's more to cloud than just the public offerings from Microsoft with Windows Azure, from Amazon, from Google, from countless others. When you start talking about virtualization, you really are talking about cloud. Cloud is a design. It's a way of building networks that's based on virtualization. So when I have a customer who starts talking to me about implementing a virtualization solution, and this would go for both Hyper-V and for VMware, for that matter. The opportunity is equal in both spaces because Veeam's backup and replication actually works with both hypervisors. So if you have a customer who's, maybe they've used VMware in the past, now they're moving in and they're adding Hyper-V as an additional hypervisor, or if you've got a new customer to virtualization and they're just going to use Hyper-V solely, you still make the same pitch to them. And the pitch is, so what are your big concerns around moving to virtualization or moving to cloud? And the surveys tell us that the number one concern, bar none, is the security of their data. And when we say security of their data, that's twofold, accessibility and availability. Is my data going to be backed up, replicated? Will I have fast access to it if something happens? And I generally will begin there with a customer. I think that's the easiest elevator pitch to make. So for example, if I literally were in an elevator, in my case there's actually stairs in the building I'm in. I'm walking up the stairs, I'm wearing my Veeam shirt, and a gentleman that's walking up the stairs next to me, he says, oh, you work for Veeam, what do you guys do? I say, well, that's a great question. We're a company that works with virtualization. And he says, oh, really? We're doing a lot of virtualization. We've got both Hyper-V and VMware. That's how the customer always begins their conversation. And I say, oh, that's good. What are your big concerns? And he says, same as always. We're always worried about data availability. And I say, you know what? Veeam is backup, replication, monitoring, and management for your virtual machines. And he says, yeah, I've heard of you. I'd love to have you guys come over and show me more about what you do and how you work. That's easy. I'm in. The customer now is asking exactly the right questions. What does the product do? What are its key benefits? How are we going to be able to get that product into our environment? So that's the elevator pitch that I always use. I talk about what the customer's needs are, what their concerns are, and then how the product meets those needs.
Perfect. That sounds simple enough, definitely, for sure. All right. So some of the features listed for backup and replication for Hyper-V include 20 times faster backup, best support, and virtual lab for Hyper-V. Can you tell us a little bit about those points and how resellers can use these talking points to their advantage?
Yeah, sure. So when you start thinking about virtualization and protecting virtual machines in a virtual environment, biggest challenge is that you can't use the tools of the past to protect the environment of the present. So what that means is if you're using the old physical data protection tools where there used to be a server running on a set of disks and they had their own processor and memory allocated to them, the design, the architecture that we actually built tools to back those machines up is different than the one that we use for virtualization. And you've got all kinds of FUD going on out there, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, about changing from the way we used to do things to a new approach. Veeam has really pushed the innovation. We only do backup, replication, monitoring, management for virtual machines. And the reason we made that choice is because, frankly speaking, you can't do both. The architectures are different. So we focus in on just the virtualization piece, and by doing that, have been able to really drive some critical innovations that are really important to a customer. For example, when you back up your virtual machine, you don't want to turn it off. Nobody does. So we've got to find a way to complete the backups, and they have to complete really, really fast. One of the ways we do that is simply monitor the VM while it's running. We use something called change block tracking. So anytime there's a change in the virtual machine, we go, hey, there's a change that just occurred there. We're going to write that change out to a little file. Now when it's time for the user to do their backup, we already know all the changes that occurred. We just write them to disk. And it does happen about 20 times faster than the old traditional backup tools. Customers love that. They eat it up. We do that without installing anything on the virtual machine because the monitoring is happening from the host, from the Hyper-V host or from the VMware host. Because the monitoring is happening there, any change that occurs on the virtual machine, we don't have to actually add anything to the VM. So from an administrator's perspective, it's really easy to install and configure. In fact, most of our Veeam installations take somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes to be from zero to up and running inside of a customer's environment. The backup's super fast. One of the things that you mentioned, this concept of virtual lab for Hyper-V, it's actually possible to mirror exactly what you have in your production environment, build this little virtual copy of it so that you can actually test changes, test backups, make sure that things work the way you think they do so that when it comes time to recover, everything happens very, very quickly again. In fact, one of the things that I always talk about, and this is not new, this is something Veeam has done for years, they actually have a patent on something called V-Power technology. The concept is very simple. It allows you to bring a virtual machine from a backup, from backup storage online, and generally it occurs in less than 2 minutes. So we have a virtual machine failure. You say, hey, I want to get that virtual machine back online. We quote it 2 minutes. I have customers on a regular basis who do far better than that. So it really is quite astounding.
You can get.
Or we can get faster.
You know, that's also a good point, too. You said before, nobody likes to turn anything off. I mean, you look at people using their cell phones. God forbid you turn your cell phone off. It's kind of the same thing.
Oh, yeah. It's exactly the same. People want uptime all the time. They don't want interruption. So
exactly. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Now, going forward, I understand Veeam is the first data protection solution to support the most recent releases from both VMware and Microsoft. Can you talk to our resellers about why this would be really important to potential customers?
Yeah, that's a great question, too. So one of the biggest things about Veeam is that we are not a workaround software company. We are a work-with software company. What I mean by that is that there are tons of software companies out there who will say, hey, look, we can do this cool stuff. We can work around the way VMware works and get you amazing results. Or we can work around the way Microsoft works and get you these tremendous results. We don't do that at Veeam. We work with VMware and we work with Microsoft. And when they develop new releases of their products, we work with them so that we meet their standards. We're approved on their versions of hypervisor in very short order after those products are released. Now, we actually have our own production testing that we will do, so we generally are not supporting them the day they're released. It usually takes us a couple of weeks because quality is like General Motors, right? Quality is job one. It really is most important to us. We want to make sure we have best quality products, innovative products that are serving the needs of a customer. As such, we only do testing on released products. So it generally takes us a couple of weeks after Microsoft or VMware release a new version, and then we give our stamp of approval after having tested it on their production release. And we like that, and we'll continue to do that. The idea here is that as a reseller, I know going into my customer that I'm providing them with a great solution from an innovation perspective, but also a solution that's actually built for the environment that they're going to work with, whether that's VMware or Microsoft's Hyper-V or a combination of both. I get that reliability. I get that, that sense of belonging, of validation that with other pieces of software I just might not have. So it really is pretty important to us.
Definitely, definitely. Now, how can resellers grow their Microsoft Windows Server 2012 with Hyper-V virtualization practice business with VM?
You know, a lot of our customers are waiting to move to Windows Server 2012 because they have these concerns: data uptime, data availability, data loss, potential issues with backup, all of those things. So as I'm talking to a customer, when I talk to them, I always talk about this as a holistic solution. Yeah, you're going to want to run Hyper-V, or you're going to want to run VMware. Today, you don't want to just buy Windows Server. You want Windows Server, and you want additional products to go with it, right? You want Veeam backup and replication if you're going to move to a virtual environment. So when I talk to them, customers will ask, so, I have friends who are using Veeam, and they're telling me how good it is. Should I be using it too? Well, the answer is yes, especially if you're working with Hyper-V, and especially if you're working with current editions of Windows Server, and especially if your environment is moving towards virtualization. That way we easily can combine sales, right? If a customer says, well, I'm not, I'm on 2008 R2, well, it's time to make the move. That's a, we're a fairly old piece of software at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's easy to make that transition from a discussion of, should I be using Veeam to, yeah, and you should probably also be upgrading to current editions of Windows Server, considering a move to virtualization if you're not already there, or deepening your virtualization investment if you're already in the virtual space.
Definitely, definitely. Now, finally, the question I know the resellers have been waiting for: what's in it for them, the reseller? And they're obviously they're wondering, can they really make money selling Veeam? And last one before we move on to Q&A with our resellers, Veeam now also makes VM CE training and certification available through Lifeboat Distribution. How much of a differentiator is it for resellers to carry VM CE certification?
Yeah, that's a super question. So VMCE certification is out there specifically for those who are going to resell Veeam, so that we have individuals inside their organizations who know as much as we can possibly give them. We know from past experience that individuals who have deep understanding and deep knowledge about products end up offering better solutions to their customers. So when we talk about VMCE training, yeah, huge opportunity here. Now, it's an opportunity for the reseller to increase their capability for resales. It's also a huge opportunity to sell to the customer who's now going to implement this into their environment, because we also know that an individual who knows and understands at a deep level the software that they're implementing and using is going to have a better experience with it. They're not going to have, the help desk issues. They're not going to have the, the time delays that might go with an individual who's going to set this up with little to no knowledge of how it operates. And so the training part is incredibly important. It adds value from a reseller perspective, and it can also add, dollars from a reseller perspective as well if you're selling that training and certification out to your customer.
Great, great. Now, before we jump into questions here, I want to explain the Veeam Reseller Incentive Program that's going on right now. We have two hot incentives for the resellers out there listening for Q1 through Veeam. Now, let me give you a little insight onto those. For Q1, it's called the Q1 Dream Vacation Incentive. One lucky reseller is going to win a $5,000 travel voucher. Each partner who transacts 3 Veeam deals in Q1 totaling at least $20K will be entered to win into the drawing. We also have extra details on that as well that we will be sending out. That's just one of the incentives. The other one is Q1 Hyper-V incentive. Now this one is for partners who transact 3 deals for Veeam Hyper-V products in Q1 will win a $250 gift card. Like I said, there are more details on this that we will be sending out. If you have your own Hyper-V incentives, so this goes together nicely. and this will help you grow your Hyper-V business and help yourself to some extra cash. All right, so now let's move on and see if we can take some questions from the floor. If anybody has any questions regarding the incentives or regarding the conversation, some of the info we just went over with Chris, please ask now. It looks like we do have questions from Kathleen, and Chris, she's wondering, will this work with Citrix Zen Server?
The answer is no Citrix Zen. And people ask me all the time, when are you going to write support for Zen? And the answer is, I don't know. And the reason behind the answer has to do with what we talked about right at the top of the session. So from a market perspective, we focused in on the two key players in the market, VMware and Hyper-V. And today those players account for more than the lion's share of the market. Between the two of them, 95% plus. I realize that there is a following for Citrix Zen, and that it is a very capable product. Unfortunately, Citrix decided that the future of Citrix Zen was not in their best interest, and they actually divested themselves of it, moved it into the open source community. So that's not a great sign for Zen's future. Unfortunately, we just don't see the uptake around Zen from a market player that we kind of, I guess, would hope for. And so from a futures perspective, we really look at VMware and at Hyper-V. I told you earlier, we work directly with those individuals who actually develop for VMware and for Hyper-V. Move to the open source community for Zen doesn't allow that opportunity for us, and so hard to see how we might provide future tools for Zen. That doesn't rule anything out. We have some of the best developers on the planet who write Veeam software, the backup and replication, and the management pack software that works with System Center Operations Manager. Really are second to none. Our customers tell us all the time, they're amazing and they just work. We wish we could write for every hypervisor out there. Unfortunately, there is a limit to time and resources that we can expend. And so for the moment, we're focused specifically on just those two, Hyper-V and VMware, and doing an amazing job with both.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many out there that you gotta concentrate on. You gotta concentrate somewhere.
Yep, I do.
It looks like we have another question from Chris. He's wondering if this can be used with Dell Compellent.
I'm sorry, with Dell, what was that again?
Compellent, C-O-M-P-E-L-L-E-N-T.
You're going to think I'm not familiar with Dell Compellent. Is that a? I'm not sure what that is.
Let's check with
so
Chris.
While, yeah, I want more clarification here.
Let's see. Hold on. We'll get that.
While you're getting that, let me give some interesting additional side note. I assume I know what this is, but I want to be certain before we start chatting. One of the things that people love about Veeam is that Veeam is software. It is not hardware. So when you're selling Veeam, you are selling a software package that is hardware agnostic. So whether you choose to run Dell servers, HP servers, Lenovo servers, you pick. We're fine with that. From a storage perspective, we're storage agnostic, and so if you want to choose to run this on a network attached storage device, if you want it on direct attached storage, if you want it on an iSCSI SAN, if you would like to use, you pick. And Veeam continues to work with storage partners and offer, cool innovations that really just add functionality based on, whatever your choices are. But we don't actually work with a specific partner and give you a specific recommendation where we say, hey, you have to run Veeam using this hardware set. Instead, this is software that's designed to run agnostic with a set of hardware.
Right, right. Okay, it looks like Chris said this is for Dell OptiPlex 755 server. Yeah,
we work with the OptiPlex line extensively. We see it all the time. From a numbers perspective, this is probably appropriate for this group. The vast majority of the Fortune 500 are already using Veeam. I think we're 480 out of the 500. So we work very, very well in large enterprise-style environments. We also work very, very well in very small environments. And the licensing is all done based on CPU sockets. So it scales really well to tiny and enormous markets. So if I were working with, well, let's use the Dell Optiplex line, right? So let's say I were using one of those Optiplex 745s. I can scale it up and I can scale it down. So if I were looking at a machine that had, say, 4 CPU sockets inside of it, I would simply buy 4 licenses of Veeam. So each CPU that's added to the machine, you buy a license of Veeam. We don't license on a per CPU, or excuse me, on a per virtual machine, only on a per CPU. That way, the user can structure the density of their virtual machines, the number of virtual machines they want to run on a physical set of hardware. If they want to run 5 on a server, great. If they want to run 2 on a server, that's fine too. The underlying CPU sockets is how all the licensing is run.
Perfect.
So make it a little bit easier. And it saves the customer a fair amount of money. So they love it.
Perfect. All right, so now let's time for the Amex gift card giveaway here. Like I said in the beginning of the presentation, we'd be raffling off 1 Amex gift card for $100 to 1 lucky winner. And our winner today is Joan Teller from E+. Congratulations, Joan. We'll follow up with you and get that over to you as soon as possible. Now, from Lifeboat Distribution, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day for talking with us today. There's some really great information here, and I just want to remind everybody in the audience that Chris put together a great slide deck that we're going to send out, you know, on the close of the webinar with our follow-up emails. Use this information. It's got a ton of good stuff in there. You know, this all supplemental material that'll go over basically everything we talked about today. So please look out for that as we send that out. Now, I would also like to remind everybody that to please visit Veeam's website. The link is up on the screen for you, and this has a ton of product information, free trials and tools, product support, as well as Veeam resources. And as well, please contact your Lifeboat sales executive for any Veeam opportunities, or if you need help setting up a demo or any kind of pre-sales assistance. Now, I'd like to put up our contact information here. This is Chris's email address. If you have any questions about today's information, please reach out to him, or as always, reach out to Lifeboat. Either of us are always here to answer any and all questions you may have. Also, please follow us on Twitter at Veeam and at Lifeboat VAD. So thank you again, Chris. Have a safe travel home, and thank you to our audience for coming out today to come and chat with us. So it was a great webinar.
Hey, thanks to all of you. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. You have a good day, Chris. And until next time, everybody.